What are y'all doing?
Finger painting.
What are you?
A fingerprint.
What are you fingerprinting with?
Paint. Today we're gonna learn about soap. But I don't know what soap means. So I'm just gonna say, this is Jeremy Carr signing off. He's got fungus on him. I'll just cut off the part with the fungus and feed you the rest.
You wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I would.
You lying?
I told you I was mean, but you don't believe me?
You better watch it. I got it on tape. I can use this court of law.
Yeah, I bet you got it on tape. We use this in the court of law?
Yeah. I love you. What you doing?
Taking a piggy bank,
Out of what?
construction paper in the shoebox.
You about ready for church?
Yeah.
Once you got your Valentine's ready?
What?
What are you doing your Valentine's?
He's giving it to a special friend.
Huh?
He's giving it to a special friend at church if she's there.
Yeah.
Yep. A special girlfriend.
I love you.
I love you too.
What you doing?
Write this song down before I forget it.
What kind of song is it?
Folks all talk about a promised land. How they gonna hold Jesus' hand in the land of no sickness or no sorrow, somewhere far away. But Jesus is Lord. Now as well as the end.
Yeah, I live in that one.
But Jesus is Lord now as well as then. Now is the day that we must enter into the kingdom, the body of Christ. In this day that the Lord has made. Yeah.
You help me climb it out the way.
I think I'm going to change that though. But Jesus. Uh-huh. Yeah, now I see it.
Will you touch one of me and Daddy?
Yeah, I'm taking one of you and Daddy. What do y'all have to say for yourselves?
We love you.
I love y'all too. I love you too. Is that all you can say for yourself? Okay, well I'll turn this off then. Huh?
Don't I look handsome?
Yes, you do look handsome.
Debonair.
Yes, debonair. I love you too.
Nurse, well, why can't we do the same thing? But when Goldilocks goes upstairs to sleep, wow! Yeah, Clem! Ooh.
For Goldilocks, only these old carrots.
Too hot.
Look at her. Heather. Hey, Heather. Smile, I love you.
Somebody's been sleeping in my bed. I'm a stalking a victim.
500 feet. Visibility 70 on. Doc?
John, smile at me quick. The camera's taking a picture of a little mad-looking boy.
Green light on?
Yeah.
Got it focused in?
Yeah. Now let me take a picture of Dad. Hi. How you doing?
Recording everything you're saying.
I know it. Do something. Don't just stand there looking gorgeous. Do some jumping jacks or something.
How about that? You ready to go to town?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm past ready.
Come on, John.
Look at John looking all mad. I got a picture of him looking mad.
Here's your little baby mama. She's not very big at all. Just a little bitty thing. Look at him, fuck her up into the lips. Yeah. See, oh, ain't he sweet? Look at little angel kisses. Oh, he's got angel kisses all over his face. Oh, somebody stole his face, mama. Oh, there's his face. Oh, my goodness.
David, let me stand still and let me see if I can try this. Smile. Don't make that ugly face. I do have it on now.
Well, I'm gonna tell you,
Ooh, what a body.
77 Buick. It's in great shape. New paint job. Come on in, Hurst, here, sir. Let me show you. Nice old. Sir, come here. Let me show you the nice old. Sir, this is a 1977 Buick Limited. It's a limited edition. They only made two or lying dog.
Lying about what? I don't have it on.
You doing that?
Tell me the truth. Henry! Don't do this. Listen to me. We know where he bought the fortune.
John,
We got it.
give me that.
Stay away from me, Jake. I want to hear him admit it. I want to hear it from you. Get him away from me. He's crazy. Henry! We're convicted by the court of law. Out here, it doesn't mean anything. Well, it means something to me, and I'm not going to make it to a court of law. Now, come on, Watson, admit it. Admit it. When we both go over, I don't care.
Quit
It
sticking
doesn't
your
matter to
nose
me.
on camera.
No. Okay, Mommy, you make
Henry?
one.
Think about what you're doing. Just think about it. Stay away, Jake. This is between me and Watson. I thought you said we were together on this. You said you wanted to be a cop. Then act like one.
Take me home and his house. He ain't going to take me drunk. He ain't going to make me get drunk. He ain't going to make me he ain't trying to ruin my life. He ain't trying to go. God ain't got to do this to me. 'Cause all I wanted is to go home and see you and videotape. And all it has been is glory to God. I'm free and set for God and me. I know God going in Texas. He walked to me and said, I love everything you did for me. I want you to do everything I got. Now let's do everything God got. And we'll do the stuff we want to do. Every song I heard, yes, that was God. Whenever I saw him, he was God. Now I am free from that sickness and all that. Through all the lies about my kids, I heard my kids, they forgot and I do too. That there's a song of glory. I saw
Okay, now if you
Mommy, I'm going to another I
Okay, look. Here, Jeremy. The love of Jesus to me is greater than anything else I've ever known. It reaches deeper than any sin stain. It reaches higher than heaven's throne. The love of God is more to me than all this world could ever be. It reaches down from the throne of glory and sets the vilest sinner free.
I thought that was nerd tree.
That's supposed to be an F.
Mama, there I am.
You're
The
beautiful.
shine right there.
Here,
Daddy, we done sang.
here's, let's see. He set me free. How about that?
He set me free from the glories.
No, let's see. Once like a bird in prison I dwell, no freedom from my sorrow I felt, but Jesus came and listened to me, and glory to God, He set me free. He set me free, yes, He set me free. He broke the bonds of prison for me, and glory bound on Jesus to see.
Glory to God, He set me free. Look what I
Documentary of the famous Mr. David Carr, or infamous, whichever you should choose to refer to him by. Right now we see him combing his hair. Is this exciting or what? Now he's combing his beard. Oh my goodness, hold me back.
Okay, ready? Okay, sing it with me. Come on. There is a fountain filled with blood drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners first the flood, all the guilt and shame. Okay. Lose all the guilt and stain. Lose all their guilt and stains. Dear. Blood shall never lose its power. Till all of God be saved to no more. Okay, you good. Be saved to sin more. Be saved to sin no more. Then in the, come on now.
I don't want to sing the rest of it.
Then, well, come on. Sweeter song.
Then I know we're sweeter song.
Yeah, that's what I said. Sing. I'll sing the power to save when the poor. What?
Whispering, stammering tongue.
Yeah, hoopering, stammering tongue.
Lies.
Yeah, lies up.
Silent.
Silent in the grave. Lie silently in the grave. Lie silently. You supposed to sing. Lie silently in the grave. Sing with me.
That's the end of the song.
Oh. Okay, that's it. Tears in heaven, no sorrow given. All will be glory. No tears.
I'm gonna kill him.
Okay. Sorrow and pain.
Who's me?
Forgive me.
America.
Do y'all know what y'all are doing?
Well, we've got time.
How do y'all expect to be a famous father and daughter team?
America's a beautiful. 388.
Okay.
In my book it is.
Well, I'll sing in your book then. Where is it at? We'll sing beautiful.
I can find it in your book for you.
Well, what's that one?
America the beautiful.
America the
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful.
Fall for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesties, for above the fruited plain, America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for pilgrim's feet. Who's what?
German poison said, a star
For freedom's sake, across the wilderness. We sing good. America, America, God shed. Where you at?
Confirm
Oh, yeah.
so in self-control that liberty and love who more than our
People for space.
Where
Where are you at?
in liberating strife.
Who self, the country love, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God
Yes, right here.
Uncle James, you want a breakfast burrito?
That's right, Uncle James.
How much is this?
Take
How
a
much money
picture
is
of
it?
me.
Tell me.
John, come here. Come here. Nobody wants to take a picture of you with them almost pants, shorts. I'm not even able to be called pants.
Oh my God, you're not doing this. Sit down. Just because your daddy got that camera on, I'll still bust you behind.
John,
My
How much is
little
that?
life. Be quiet.
Tell me how much that is.
Oh, on video. Ow!
So if you got that 10 cents and that, how much you got? Huh? Okay, so if you got that, this is what? Okay, so if you put this in
Okay,
this
that's
is
your
15 cents. How many cents do you have altogether?
I love you too, booby.
It's not hard, baby.
it's really simple. You just gotta get the hang of it.
Hey, look.
I'm really sick out of my wits.
I know that's how I used to get. That's why I failed school all the time, because I was sick of it, all right?
Probably like
15, 20.
Just like 320. 10, 15.
Here, Jeremy, look.
I'm sorry you
This is equal to how many cents?
I'm sorry you don't play. I already got no
M1 tank. The M1 is the Army's main battle tank, and it's considered to be among the best, if not the best in the world. Its armor is designed to withstand an assault from molten metal shells, and it is equipped with a system to provide at least some protection to the crew from a chemical weapons attack. The M1 carries a 120-millimeter cannon, and its firepower is second to none. One of the things the Army is counting on is the better range of the M1 tank's gun as compared to the best that the Iraqis have. Despite a weight of nearly 65 tons, the M1 is very fast. That's one of the reasons they think they can get so quickly out there across the desert. But it's a real gas guzzler, the M1. Its estimated mileage, 2 to 5 gallons per mile. And much of this ground war offensive depends on how effective the M1 tank will be. Let's go down to Bob Schieber at our studios in New York with retired U.S. Marine General George Cripps. Bob?
Dan, just as important as the weapons that will be used are the tactics. One of the things that they're already talking about, General Chris, is a feint. Now, what do the commanders mean? What do the military people mean when they talk about a feint?
Well, a feint, let's talk about the amphibious forces, for example. You have a heavily defended coast here, Bob, with about 4 or 5 divisions. Now, bringing the amphibious forces in and then pounding them with artillery fire and naval gunfire in air the way they're doing now, the Iraqis aren't going to know whether those 17,000 Marines are going to come ashore or not. So they're going to have to keep 4 or 5 divisions tied up on that shore awaiting that attack. Now that's 4 or 5 divisions that aren't going to be used for to the west or someplace else. On the other hand, the Marines may go in, particularly if something happens, let's say in this area, these troops start to move, that opens up a way for the Marines to come in. So a feint or a demonstration is sort of like punching with the right hand and then hitting him with the left. He doesn't know whether that fist is coming at him or not.
Now, David Martin says that this could be one of the most critical parts of the operation. Why does David say that? What does that mean?
Well, I think what David is trying to say is that the operations here in the east against Kuwait are all designed to fix some 300,000 troops that he has out in this area in place, while the big attack, of course, as Dan has mentioned, goes in around the western flank and keep them from moving west to block us.
Now, the troops that we know that have moved across the border, here I know you have a blue arrow here. These are the Marines.
Those are the Marines from the 2nd Marine Division.
What kind of equipment are they using? What are they bringing to bear on?
Well, they're bringing to bear right now, they're bringing their M60 A3 tanks up. They're moving their tanks in those positions. They've also brought infantry in the LBT, which is a mechanized armored fighting vehicle that the Marines use. They also have their light armored vehicles up in there, and they brought their 155 artillery well forward to support this operation. So there's quite a gaggle, if you will, of heavy firepower right now in that area.
Of course, the great horror of the nightmare is that if the Iraqis use chemical weapons, would this be the point in the attack they would use the chemical weapons, or would that come later?
Well, we're getting pretty close. Bob, the Iraqis will use chemical weapons at the point that our troops become concentrated. If they can get us out in front of their lines or somewhere breaking through the lines and there's a concentration, that's the time you use chemicals. And indeed, in some of these instances, we certainly are approaching the possibility of them using their chemical weapons.
General George Chris. Dan, back to you.
Thanks, Bob. Mitch Mitchell, retired Colonel, U.S. Army and a war historian, is with us here. Colonel, you were saying to me while some of our other reports were going on that in your opinion, would be a mistake to say that diplomacy is ended. That diplomacy has to continue even as the ground war now starts, because there has to be somebody thinking about how to end this war.
Yes, Dan, there must be some type of conduit from Saddam Hussein to the United States and especially to the United Nations. He has to have a way to back out. As we've discussed before, he is a survivor. Right now, I'm sure he's still looking for a way out of this to put him in the very best stead back in Iraq. I'm sure he's not in Kuwait now. I'm sure he is somewhere in Iraq figuring out whether this is a serious ground offensive or not. If he sacrifices 20 or 30,000 soldiers to find out, it won't matter as long as his survival is not in jeopardy. But right now, I think he is beginning to worry a lot about whether he's going to make it through this war.
Let's go to Bill Plant at the State Department, then talking about diplomacy. Bill, what's the latest there?
Well, Dan, the General makes a very good point, because there is a conduit, an existing conduit between Saddam Hussein and the Soviet Union. We're told that he has excellent communications with Moscow. Anything he wants to communicate to the UN, for that matter to the U.S., could very easily be passed that way. There is no diplomacy right now to speak of. The UN is still planning to meet later tonight. About 10 o'clock, the Security Council will have an informal session. But as we were told earlier, they are there because they know the war is going on and they want to be able to participate in some sense. Although there are no resolutions planned, there is nothing expected from that session. But in talking about what diplomacy might eventually do, it will have to play some role in negotiating the end of this conflict, whether it is sooner or later. No question about that. Dan?
We have just in from Riyadh pictures of Patriots being fired against Scuds in Riyadh. This was the scene and these were the sounds just a short while ago. And so much for the theory that Saddam Hussein had moved his Scud missile launchers so far north of Baghdad that they couldn't reach Riyadh. Now, as we know, he has a lot of mobile Scud launchers, which just in the last few days could have been moved closer. But what we know tonight is that Patriots were fired in Riyadh against Scuds there. Here in Dhahran, where the siren sounded with a Scud alert within the hour, we simply don't know if any Patriots were fired. We didn't hear, nor did we see any there. Here, Tom Fenton is in Israel. Tom, the Israelis were hoping against hope that the ground war offensive would be kicked off. They must be relieved tonight.
Indeed they were, Dan, and indeed they are relieved. This is the moment they've been waiting for. There was a lot of concern here that at the last minute a Soviet brokered deal might somehow bring about a ceasefire, and that the Iraqis would then withdraw from Kuwait with a good part of their army intact. Paradoxically, this is also the moment of greatest danger for the Israelis. Chief of Staff General Dan Shomron said a short while ago that there was always a possibility that at the last minute, with his back against the wall, Saddam Hussein would launch some sort of a non-conventional attack at Israel, either chemical warheads on Scuds or perhaps a suicide mission by fighter bombers bringing poison gas. Now, if that happened and if there were a large number of casualties, that would be the time that Israel would finally enter this war. The Israelis have been sitting on their hands ever since the beginning, absorbing these Scud attacks because the United States wanted them out of the conflict to avoid breaking up the Arab coalition. But now that the ground war is underway, if there were some sort of a non-conventional attack and there were heavy casualties, all bets would be off, and it's quite likely the Israelis would be in this war as well.
Maybe worth underscoring, Tom, that while the Israelis made every argument and had a strong belief that going and crushing Saddam Hussein's military forces, if indeed not Saddam himself, was essential to Israel's security, that they also believed and made the point that they believed it to be in the best interest of the United States and for the long-range security of the United States to do the same. Standing by in London is Dr. Jafar Ali of the Association of Free Kuwait. Dr. Ali, thank you for being with us tonight. The ground war is finally underway. Kuwait is aflame, and we hear these terrible stories which have every indication of being true of executions inside Kuwait.
Yes, quite right. And one of the tragedies of this war, which started on August 2nd, has been that the brutal murder, torture, and rape of our citizens in Kuwait. And the Iraqi regime has not allowed any images to come out from our country. We know by now that at least 7,500 of people have been killed. We know that 17,000 at least have been taken away. So the recent atrocities that have occurred since yesterday are really entirely consistent with the type of campaign that the Iraqis have been conducting, the brutal atrocities that have been conducting since August 2nd. And this is really just a vindictive act, and trying to intimidate our people.
You make a good point, Dr. Ali, that we've seen photographs, pictures. Saddam Hussein has tried to make sure the world saw the pictures of civilian casualties inside Iraq, but never allowed any photographs of what was going on inside Kuwait. When you finally get back into Kuwait, let me ask first of all, how soon do you expect to return to Kuwait?
Hope that we can return as soon as possible. I think all Kuwaitis right now are patient because they know that this type of coalition forces, the war that the coalition forces have joined since the middle of January, has to be planned carefully, whereby there is minimal amount of loss both to the civilians and to the forces. And so we have to be patient and allow the coalition forces to take the best action they can. We're hoping that this will be as soon as possible because of, as I just said, the campaign inside Kuwait of the terrorism that has been going on since the beginning of August has increased. We know people were picked up from the mosques yesterday. This is the type of Iraqis call themselves Muslims, and they ask for jihad. But nevertheless, they go to the mosques where the Kuwaitis are, and they pick them up from there. And they also have been picking up Kuwaitis from the streets. And it's really the randomness of the whole action that they have been conducting since then that is appalling.
Maybe worth noting that one reason, apparently, that they're rounding up people and executing people is they don't want any witnesses to the atrocities that the Iraqis have perpetrated on Kuwait. Thank you very much, Dr. Ali. Joining us in New York, our CBS News consultant on the Middle East, one of the world's ranking scholars on this area of the world, and our friend Fuad Ajami of Johns Hopkins University. Fuad, what's on in Saddam Hussein's mind now as the ground war is underway?
He now has the mother of all battles that he wanted. This isn't really the mother of all battles. In many ways, it's the daughter of all his illusions and miscalculations. A little knowledge is often said to be a dangerous thing. Saddam Hussein doesn't really know much about America. He had little fragments in his mind. He knew about Vietnam. He knew about what happened in Lebanon. But what he didn't calculate and what he didn't factor into his calculations was the fact that he was going to be facing a president molded by World War II. So Saddam has this ground battle he wants. On some level, it is the product of all his miscalculations. On yet another level, this is really his hope, because in the end, his hope was always the fact that the ground battle is the great equalizer. If you listen to him, if you read some of his speeches, Saddam Hussein has a very primitive view of warfare. He's talked about air power as a kind of something that real men don't do. Real men don't use air power, that they go to ground warfare. So he has this battle now, and he has it on the ground.
I'm thinking, when I interviewed Saddam Hussein, and then after the interview, we walked around the presidential palace in Baghdad, how many times he said, "You can't take the blood," meaning the United States can't take the casualties. He still seems to be, and asking whether you agree, still sort of saying to himself, well, when they get on the ground, I can inflict the casualties and they won't be able to take it.
Exactly, Dan. I think you're absolutely right. In his own sense, despots have always misjudged the resolve of democracies. Despots look at democracies and think that democracies are very feeble entities. He looks at the U.S. and he thinks, well, it can take an an air campaign because it has a great technological advantage. But he looks on the ground and he says, well, of course, if you can inflict 5 or 10,000 casualties on the American forces, then the resolve of this society will begin to erode. You're absolutely right. This was always the hope of Saddam Hussein, and this was always his great illusion about this society, that we didn't have the guts and we didn't have the stomach for a long fight.
Your judgment, Fuad, on how important was it, how significant was it when those U.S. Marines were 242 blown up and killed in Beirut, and then the United States pulled out of Lebanon?
I think, Dan, this is truly the formative experience of Saddam Hussein. That's about where his knowledge of American society goes. That's how deep it goes. He looked at the verdict of the Lebanon War. He looked at the quick withdrawal after the Marine Barracks episode of October '83, and he didn't think that we would stay the course. He didn't think that the stakes were large enough. But he's been wrong all along. He's miscalculated things wrong all along. He didn't think we would price Kuwait high enough. We priced it high enough. He didn't think we would launch the air war. We launched the air war. He didn't think that President Bush had it in him to launch a ground war. We launched the ground war. And in a way, it really is this. We now are at this point where every miscalculation of Saddam Hussein is right before us to see.
Well, Johnny, thanks. Today, Iraqi radio was quoting Saddam Hussein in a broadcast to troops, telling Iraqi troops, "You have angels on your shoulders," saying that the U.S. and allied forces were the devils, and that God would have the Iraqis prevail. Let's go to Bob Fall now at the United Nations on the latest diplomatic activity there, Bob.
And the events tended to eclipse, indeed overwhelm this institution. A lot of diplomatic scurrying going on, but the horse, if you will, is already out of the barn. The ambassador for the Soviet Union still sticks by his words. It's entirely possible and desirable, his words, for the Security Council to blend together parts of the old Soviet and the American peace proposals. That is what he will try to do in less than an hour when the Security Council members start straggling in. Non-aligned members like India think it's a great idea and will support the idea. The United States does not and will try to fight it. This all may seem very academic in light of events and somewhat embarrassing, if you will, for the UN, leaving this institution sitting on the sidelines and suggesting that when push comes to shove, this place is little more than what its critics always said it was, a glorified debating society and not, at least at this point, a force to be reckoned with. The curiosity, obviously, will be to see how the diplomats, when they come in less than an hour, will choose to grapple with that new reality. Dan?
Thanks, Bob. The ground war offensive underway. President Bush on his way back to the White House. The President of the United States is expected to address the nation sometime during the evening. No sooner than 10 p.m. Eastern Time is he expected to speak. With the ground war underway, you may want to, for perspective and context, keep in mind that Saddam Hussein has to fight a one-dimensional war. That is strictly with ground forces, tanks, artillery, and he has the Scud missiles. But he's one-dimensional. The U.S. and allied forces are three-dimensional: air, sea, and ground. And tonight, in the darkness, out there in the desert, inside Kuwait, and over the southern part of Iraq, those allied forces, all three elements, air, sea, and ground, are being brought to bear. A Marine amphibious force is reported approaching the Kuwaiti land. We don't know yet whether that's a feint or not. Marines on land are into Kuwait at least 6 miles, possibly as far as 16. Units of the U.S. 1st Cavalry Army, along with pan-Arab forces in another section of Kuwait, are also operating cross-border. Joining me now is CBS News correspondent Martha Teichner, who is just back from the front. Martha, how is it planned for the men to get through the mines that we know the Iraqis have set?
Well, step one of any ground advance is breaking through a path for any kind of oncoming artillery and infantry that would go through. In this kind of activity, there are many ways that this can take place, but it's been going on for at least a full day along the Iraqi-Kuwaiti border. What is expected to be the workhorse mine-clearing device, the MICLIC, for the U.S. Army, is practically experimental. When I saw the 1st Armored Division practice firing it a couple of weeks ago, 3 generals were seeing it in action for the first time. A piece of equipment they would have to use extensively, not only in the first hours of a ground war, but also as U.S. forces move deeper through the layered defenses the Iraqis have developed. Back home in Germany, the Army was never allowed to try out the Miklik with real explosives. The British version, called the Viper, has been in use for nearly 30 years. The idea behind both the Viper and the Miklik is to throw out a line of explosives so a minefield can be blown up at a relatively safe distance. If Saddam Hussein has planted chemical mines, any safety zone could limit exposure. Then, there is no way that the United States forces have found to successfully breach what we've heard about the flaming trenches. They're absolutely too hot. I've been told that they're 2,000, 3,000 degrees, and their approach to those is just to go around. There are lots of other kinds of devices that can be used, but one thing that I found interesting is that the engineering operation, this is called engineering, is going to be larger in this war than it was for World War II.
What pleasure. Thanks. And as we listen to the British Tornadoes, the F-15s and F-16s take off in the background, there have been wave after wave of these planes taking off for about the last 2 hours, underscoring once again that the land war is underway. It may take as much as 48 hours to develop. Martha mentioned the 1st Armored Division flush up against the Iraqi border. It would be one of the lead forces sweeping through Iraq with the open maneuver of armor. As Martha pointed out, there's no intention to take on the Iraqis dug in so deeply and so well in Kuwait with any frontal assault. The idea is to, as Andrew Jackson developed as a tactic for the United States military, strong reconnaissance, then flank, always flank, run to the flanks, and once the enemy begins to run, pour it on. And that, in a nutshell, is what General Schwarzkopf is hoping to do here. Now, headlines of the hour. The ground war offensive is underway. U.S. using its night fighting advantages to the maximum. The President expected to address the nation sometime this evening about 10 o'clock Eastern Time or sometime after that, and a Pentagon briefing is set for 10:30 tonight Eastern Time. For an update at the White House, let's go to Wyatt Andrews. Wyatt?
Dan, we are just minutes away from seeing the landing of the President's helicopter. He's expected to land at 9:30 from Camp David. In what now, look, in retrospect, was probably a feint by the President to go to Camp David in the way that he did, taking Secretary of State James Baker with him, only now to have launched the ground war and to come back and to explain to the public exactly why he did. Dan, it's one of those nights that this is the 3rd night in this administration that the President will make this kind of speech. December of 1989, he sent troops to Panama and invaded that country. And the second time was just about a month ago, January 17th, when he launched the air war. And tonight, once again, we fully expect the President will be in the briefing room for an address to the nation. Different this time, he'll also face reporters. We don't know whether he will take any questions, but that is what the speech is about. He is a man who enjoys unprecedented support for this particular campaign, given what has gone on with the permission that he got a month ago from Congress, the ultimatum that he laid down on Saddam Hussein yesterday, and the support that he got from the coalition over the last 48 hours to indeed get to this point. Dan?
The one, though, has thermal sights that let it see through smoke. Inside, it is crowded, barely big enough for the 4 men who ride in it. A gunner and tank commander are seen here. The driver lies on his back behind them and steers using a series of periscopes.
And with me right now to help explain how the tank works is the commander of this tank, Sergeant Samuel Tuggle. And we're right in front of the driver's compartment right here. Sergeant, during combat, we wouldn't see the driver's head poking out like this, would we?
No, the driver would operate the tank in the closed position. The hatch would be closed at all times during combat.
And he actually lies on his back as he steers in combat.
That's exactly. The seat is designed in a reclining position so that he can operate the tank with the hatch closed.
Now, some of the interesting features of this M1A1, which is the state-of-the-art tank, are the protective systems built in for the 4 men inside. You have a system that protects you against a biological or chemical attack. Explain how that works.
Yes, the NBC system, nuclear biological chemical attack, which is an overpressurization system.
So that raises air pressure inside to keep outside air from contaminated air from seeping in?
Yes, it allows the crew to operate, pressurize the cabinet, allows the crew to operate under normal conditions during the NBC attack.
So in a chemical attack, you might be able to go without your gas masks in the initial few minutes of the attack.
Yes, that is true, but the tank commander would dictate, and the threat would dictate whether they were done in protective masks or not.
Some of the other protective systems on here include what you call explosive panels or blowout panels on top of the turret. Can you explain how those protect the men inside?
Yes, the blowout panels are designed if you were to receive a round or a direct hit in the rear compartment of the turret, the blowout panels will activate and blow off, allowing the brunt of the explosion to escape through the blowout panels.
So it blows everything away from the guys inside,
Exactly.
including, I guess, your own ammunition.
Exactly, ammunition. It keeps the crew with the least limit damage to the crew so that the brunt of the explosion can escape out through the panels.
And speaking of ammunition, you have quite a bit of your own. Explain that the cannon is an upgrade from the old tank, right?
Yes, when they went from the M1 to the M1A1, they upgraded the cannon from a 105 millimeter gun to a 120 millimeter smoothbore gun.
And on this turret, I guess you have a lot of flexibility. It spins pretty quickly.
Exactly. The turret can spin anywhere from 6 to 7 seconds in a 360 degrees.
Pretty quickly. And I'll explain the armor over here. This is a depleted uranium armor. This is an upgrade from the old tank, too. We're told that the Iraqis really don't have any artillery that can pierce this under normal battle conditions. A lot of the information on this is classified, and that's about all we can tell.
Exactly.
On the engine, Sergeant, you're pretty proud of this engine. I understand it's pretty powerful.
Yes, the engine is 1,500 horsepower engine. Has transmission has 4 speeds forward and 2 speeds in the rear. It can travel at anywhere from 40 to 45 miles per hour on flat surface, and it can travel between 30 miles per hour across country.
I understand 0 to 20 in 7 seconds. You're pretty confident in this tank, aren't you?
Yes, sure am. Okay. The tank is a good tank. Anyone come up against the tank, it's going to have to bring me lunch because it's going to be an all-day affair.
All right, Sergeant, thank you very much. And down there, critics are a little concerned about how this will perform in desert conditions, worried about sand clogging air filters, worrying about the gas guzzling. You know, it takes 2 to 6 gallons per mile to get this thing through. There are some concerns, but the Army, as we've been told, is very confident that this is the machine for this ground war. Dan, back to you.
Thanks, Aaron. Footnoting that the M1 did have some difficulty when there were maneuvers in the Egyptian desert, but a number of changes have been made since that time. Also, as we hear more of the aircraft taking off, that particular plane is a cargo plane. Cargo planes have been taking off along with the war's flight planes for several hours here now. Part of the resupply, including making sure enough ammunition and fuel gets right up to the front now that the ground war has started. A number of people have called in to say, well, you know, you say the M1 tank has better range than the gun on the best of the Soviet tanks that the Iraqis have. I'm a little confused because I thought the Iraqi guns have better range. We're talking about two different things. The Iraqis have artillery with longer range than U.S. artillery. And one of the many things to look for as the ground war develops is how far forward the U.S. artillery can get in to get inside the range that they can hit back at the Iraqi artillery. But the Iraqis' artillery has greater range with their best guns than the U.S. has. But when it comes to the tanks, one of the things that General Schwarzkopf and General Colin Powell and the General Waller and others are counting on is that they want to get the elite Republican Guard moving out in the desert, coming out to meet them, because when they do, they think they can, in a word, knock the hell out of them, because the M1 tank gun has a greater range than the gun on the Russian tank. Let's go back to Bob Schiefer now with General Crist.
Dan, one thing that I think we should say, and I think you would want us to underline, we've had some calls here at CBS News about the information we're giving out about the battle zone, about the war. We want to stress that this all comes from public sources. It is based on information we get from press pools at the front, other public sources. We are extremely careful not to give away anything that might give Saddam information that he might not otherwise have. For example, when we talk about various units, the Marines and so forth, we speak only in a very general way about where those troops are located. And because we do have very good analysis, because General Crist is here to guide us along the way, we want to assure all of our viewers that at no time do we give out information when there's even a doubt that it might in some way help Saddam Hussein. General, one of the things we've been talking about through the day is the atrocities that are going on in Kuwait now, the problems that are going on there. That is going to be one of the most difficult aspects of this whole operation, is it not, to free Kuwait City, the city itself?
Kuwait's going to be very tough, and I think that we would like to end up surrounding Kuwait something like that, Bob, with the city sitting inside. Now, the most difficult thing in the world is to tack into a city. It's built up, it's hand to hand, room to room, street by street, block by block. And it's terribly, terribly expensive. And I believe what they'll try to do is hope, one, that the garrison left before we get there, or in fact, once they are cut off, as they would be in a ring like this, that they would surrender. Because the alternative is a very tough fight, as they found in Stalingrad.
General, we hear about these fires that are being set in Kuwait City, about setting the oil fields afire. Is there any military reason for that kind of action?
Well, it's difficult to say. Of course, we've been firing in there too, and we've been hitting those refineries, but just to simply set the refineries afire, which sit right down in this area down in there, has no military significance other than to set them afire and destroy them.
We're hearing these reports all through the day of atrocities, of civilians being rounded up. Does that give you any indication or a hint, perhaps, that is it in fact the Iraqis may be about to leave, or there seems to be no reason?
No particular reason. Obviously, it could be recrimination against the Kuwaitis. They could be clearing them out of military areas that they expect to defend. That's also been done. Or the simple massacres the Germans did before they retreated from some of those Russian villages.
I guess one thing we should underline, it's going to be a while before they get to Kuwait City.
That's going to be a few days, Bob.
All right. Thank you. Back to you, Dan.
Here are the headlines of the hour. As the ground war begins, President Bush at this moment is returning to the White House in Washington. President Bush has been at Camp David, Maryland, with Secretary of State James Baker. It's often said that when the really big decisions are to be made, when all the big chips are on the table, anytime for George Bush, that James Baker, his longtime friend, will be with him. Baker was with him at Camp David, but now the president is returning to the White House, where he's expected to address the nation sometime tonight, noting that the Prime Minister of Great Britain is expected to address his people at 10 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Now, the headlines of the hour include the fact that President Bush has come back to the White House. Amphibious forces are said to have moved into action off Kuwait, and that President Bush, we don't know the time he's going to address the nation, but he definitely will. What's described as the first wave of the ground offensive has started. It's also said to be the most crucial wave, since it may encounter whatever military might Saddam Hussein has left, including possible chemical attack. That's one of the things the forces are on the lookout for. The ground offensive got underway about 8 hours after the noon Eastern U.S. time deadline today for Saddam Hussein to begin pulling his forces out of Kuwait. After that deadline had expired, U.S. officials said you can expect anything, any time now, and the ground offensive then was kicked off this evening. Just before the ground offensive started, some of the heaviest fighting of the war was reported, with U.S. Marines destroying some 33 Iraqi armored vehicles and taking 200 prisoners. In this first wave on the ground, 31 amphibious ships with some 17,000 Marines were said to be gathered off the coast of Kuwait. While all this was happening, Patriot missiles were fired in Riyadh, and air raid sirens sounded both there and here in Iran, where airplanes had continued to take off in giant waves for the past several hours. This was the sight and sound in Riyadh. Patriots fired. We don't have any reports on damage or casualties here in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. While the sirens sounded, we don't believe any Patriots were fired. We neither saw nor heard any of them. Let's check in with David Martin at the Pentagon. David, how goes the war?
Well, Dan, we're going to find out more about exactly that at 10:30, which will presumably be after the president speaks. We are going to get a statement from somebody who is described only as a Defense Department official. Whether that will be Defense Secretary Cheney or not, I do not know. And the announcement of this statement makes it pretty clear that there are not going to be a lot of answers to questions here. I think we're going to be frustrated for a period of time now while we wait for the details of exactly what's unfolding on the ground, because I think there's going to be extreme sensitivity about telling Saddam Hussein anything that might aid him in defending himself against this onslaught. Remember, all this bombing over the past 38 days has basically knocked out all of his eyes and ears, and what he knows from watching American television. And Defense Department officials have said on a number of occasions when they're briefing reporters that they are acutely aware of what they are saying is going directly into whatever room Saddam Hussein happens to be at the time. So we should not count on a lot of details, and I think most of it is going to be guesswork for probably another 24 hours. If I were guessing, and I want to stress to people who are listening, I'm not giving away any battle plan here because I do not know the battle plan, but I would say keep your eye on the 24th Infantry Division for a couple of reasons. General Schwarzkopf, when he was a major general, commanded the 24th Infantry Division. It is currently commanded by another major general named Barry McCaffrey, who is widely regarded as one of the, if not the best combat general in the United States Army. And I think the combination of those two factors, Schwarzkopf's old affection for that division and the high regard in which McCaffrey is held, makes it almost certain that the 24th Infantry Division, which is one of those divisions out to the west, is going to play a crucial role in whatever transpires in the next 24, 36, 48 hours.
On to this battle. Now, the Marines report early successes here in this engagement, the capture of 200 Iraqi prisoners of war, and apparent early victory in that fight in Kuwait. One of the keys to this battle that we are going to see emerging in the days ahead will be the ability of the American side and its allies to make effective use of artillery weapons. The British, who we see here, have been using their big 155-millimeter howitzers and 8-inch guns along the border for the last several days, joining up with American units who were similarly deployed along the border. Now, the reason, Dan, that these artillery battles that have begun and are likely to be grabbing many of the headlines in the days ahead are so important. Here we see an MLRS, a multiple launch rocket system, which is the newest item of artillery in the U.S. Catalog of weapons, firing off at Iraqi forces in Kuwait. The reason that this artillery is so important in the early going is twofold. One, the Iraqis have built a line of obstacles and bunkers across the Kuwaiti border. The Marines and the American Army troops that go in there are going to have to hit those obstacles. While they are tied up, knocking down the obstacles, there's the danger that they will be subject to enemy artillery fire, which can be killing. In fact, artillery very often results in 50% of the battlefield casualties in any war. Secondly, and equally important, American commanders say that the artillery round is Saddam Hussein's best way to deliver his poison gas weapons, nerve gas, mustard gas, and all the other gas that he has, and that if the American artillery, the MLRS, the howitzers, those other weapons, can knock out Saddam's artillery in the early going, then the threat from gas is much diminished.
And that's one reason, Eric, that the troops who were part of the earlier assault, some of them will be dressed in their gas protective gear as they move in a scene that can only be described as an eerie battlefield tonight. So thanks, Eric. We have just heard from troops who've just returned from some of those probing attacks. Let's listen to what they have to say.
This morning we left, started out across the berm. We got a couple miles within the berm, and they started firing mortar rounds randomly. We were in a tactical convoy, and they were firing at angles all over the place, and then finally, I counted 3, and then when the fourth one hit, it hit our vehicle.
We could hear the mortar fire as it was coming towards us, the random hits, and then the next thing you know, we heard a boom, real loud boom, and it threw us into the windshield, and all of our gear that was in the back, came up to the front, and it was smoky and everything, I couldn't see.
Once our vehicle got hit, one of the LABs fired a tow missile into the same direction where they was at, so if anything was there, it's not there anymore.
LAV being a landing vehicle, and they, like the Bradley fighting vehicle, they have these TOW missiles designed to knock out tanks. And for that matter, they can be fired against a variety of targets on the ground. Those troops back from the early probing missions, you heard one of them talk about the bream that they had been trying to knock out. British troops pounded Iraqi positions with their big guns, howitzers. British artillery is organized much like U.S. artillery. They fire the same ammunition. They're right behind the advancing armor. The British are now flush up against the southern Kuwaiti border. The famous Desert Rats are among the British troops operating out here in the Saudi desert. The Desert Rats name comes from World War II. General Montgomery, the legendary British desert commander who was the man who finally stopped the German General Rommel in North Africa. To many of our young viewers, this may sound like ancient history, but it was one of the most decisive battles most important battles of early World War II, when the British General Montgomery stopped the German General Rommel about 7 miles from Cairo. Rommel had advanced. And the famous Desert Rats got their name during that period, and they're carrying the tradition forward now as part of the British forces here. Now, as the ground war begins, we have these headlines: ground forces moving into Kuwait, amphibious forces massing just off the coast. President Bush to brief the nation shortly. He's returned to the White House. After high day of noon, the showdown. The first wave of Allied forces has begun to roll into Kuwait. They are reported as much as 18 miles now inside the Iraqi-held territory. These pictures taken from an Apache attack helicopter. Look at them for just a moment. The Apache is a night killer. Tanks, bunkers, truck convoys, and artillery emplacements. The Apache has this night fighting equipment which it just brings the whole battlefield up as if it were daytime. And it's been very busy the last couple of days and exceptionally busy tonight. Amphibious forces, some 17,000 Marines, are reported massing on. If they're actually planned to attack or if they're being used as a diversion for the main ground force. David Martin of the Pentagon says there's word of many Iraqi soldiers surrendering, but the frontline Iraqi troops are the weakest. This is the way ground warfare is frequently fought. You put your weakest troops most forward, so when the other side attacks, you can sort of get a measure of how strong the attacking force is. Saddam Hussein's whole guard is his elite Republican Guard, what used to be known as the Presidential Guard, which is dug in much further back from the front. Official word on the ground war will come to about 15 minutes now. We're told that President Bush is expected to speak from the White House.
What do you think about Hussein leaving Kuwait?
I think it's more better as we leave and brings the people to.
Do you think this will help the situation in the Middle East if he leaves and takes his people with him?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, how long do you think the American troops will be over in the Middle East?
About 20 years.
20 years? Well, is that with resistance or without resistance?
With resistance.
With resistance. Well, how many planes and tanks do you think Hussein's got?
A million.
A million? Well, how many do you think we've done gotten already?
9.
9? Well, we have, according to the latest, we have millions of troops that we've already captured. What do you think about that?
I think I didn't see it before.
Think you didn't see it before? Okay.
He's talking about we got thousands of Iraqi troops, John. You seen them Iraqi men on TV? That's what he's talking about.
No, but
Well, what do you think about Hussein, what we should do to him when we capture him?
put him in jail and not let people in jail.
Yeah, and while he's in jail, have a holiness meeting and help him get saved.
Would that help any?
Now the cross.
No, we Jesus' people. We believe in Jesus' way. That's the devil's way to nail somebody on.
What if we just buy him a Cadillac and put him on welfare?
No, David.
I think he should go home to his family.
Think so?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh no.
And it's big, and it's real tough, and it's mean, and it has claws, and it has a mean peak too. It has claws on its teeth, and it's mean, and it has a mean tooth.
What kind of cow do you have? Do what? What kind of cow do you have? I see. What does karate bulls do? They what? Oh, they do not.
Yeah.
How many cows do you have on your farm?
1,000,000 of them.
How many calves do you have?
About 20 of them.
20?
And my girl, my woman's cows only have 3. And the other woman's calf just had cold.
Well, why don't you just pull the wagon down there?
Where y'all going? What y'all doing? Can you get through there? Huh?
Wait a minute, they're in there.
Dad, this is my pee and how I got here. Daddy?
peeing hole, Dad.
Do what?
That hole he dug in the ground to pee in one day.
What is that?
It's a peeing hole, Dad.
I see. Them chicken houses are right straight ahead. Right on top of the hill. You want to come see them?
No, this one hadn't.
Huh?
Do what?
You want to come see them chicken houses?
Sacrificing these worm lives in vain is what I'm doing.
Well, you said there was a bunch of fish in here. You ain't caught none yet? Huh?
No, I ain't caught none. It ain't gonna catch none.
How come? Look like you're doing good. Where's your cork?
All them fishes pulled it under.
I see, that swamp monster could come out of there and eat it. Huh?
Well, there's something in there.
A shark.
There was a leaf in there, yeah.
Did it bite it?
Yeah, it did it. You know it did it.
Huh? You let it get away? Doggone you.
Oh, shoot, David. I didn't get no new hook on my driving reel like I meant to. Not so sorry. The man that won't bring his wife fishing in a decent fishing hole.
Well, I didn't say I wouldn't take you fishing in a decent fishing hole.
Yeah, you did?
Did not. I'm going to put this on camera right now. It's baby's grave that's buried on the land.
And there's a statue.
America, David!
Turn around.
Let Chris get the picture.
You say hey?
Oh,
Look
wait.
how your child. Look at Chris.
I would like to
Who
ride.
wants to call their
Do what?
child?
I'd like to ride.
Why?
Uncle David?
Well, she likes to talk on a minute.
I know.
Woo! Look at that.
How old is she now?
She's 12 weeks old. She's 12 weeks old yesterday.
12 weeks old yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see, that would be February 28th would be her birthday, right?
Right.
So, don't miss the next
See, her name is
Mary Catherine Danielle.
Mary Catherine Danielle.
Y'all, let's
All
see
right.
it.
Hi, Mary Catherine Danielle.
Y'all, let's
I've got a long name.
I got a long name.
Have you learned to spell it yet? Huh? Have you learned to spell it yet? How old are you now?
I'll be 3 in April.
3 in April.
Can you tell Uncle David how old you are?
That many? Woo-wee. I run out of fingers to count on mine.
What's your name?
Tim?
Is your name too?
Yeah.
Your name's not Chris?
Yeah, I'm named Chris. I said, what? What did he say?
Your birthday's April the what? April the 10th.
Look.
Somebody can ask him what his name is, and it's Chris, and you ask him how old it is. ask him his name and his two, and you ask him what his name is, he'll say two. And you ask him how old he is, he'll say Chris. Wait, hold. Let me put my tea down. John, here, put my tea down somewhere. Put it over there on the bookshelf till I get through holding the baby around.
Dad's gonna turn me loose, Tom.
Okay, now.
You're choking me.
It's March.
You getting
March the 5th. Hush, I'm telling them what
Hey, look at
date
us
it
a
is.
minute.
Of 1991. And I'm here with these three beautiful children, Mr. John David Carr, Miss Mary Catherine Danielle, and Mr. Christopher. And these other two children, James and Paula.
Hey, get a picture of us French kissing.
No! And we're very happy
Oui,
to
oui,
be
monsieur.
here with y'all
May I have
and
this
share
kiss?
our wonderful presents. Except for James and Paula, their wonderful presents ain't so wonderful when they're talking over me.
You want to see a French kiss? Oui, oui, monsieur. I am Pierre la Français. Moi. French kiss. Look.
I know I'm looking at the camera.
Smile for the birdie and say cheese.
Got me quit, man.
Here, walk me back to the bathroom so people don't have to see my naked body. Bye.
Okay, now he's taking a picture of us. Look at the camera and say, "Hi, Uncle David."
Hi, Uncle David.
Say hi, Daddy.
Hi, Daddy.
Hi, darling.
David. Hi, Uncle David. Hi, Uncle David.
What's them new yeehaws doing? James, your drawers is showing. I'm gonna kill you. Well, I guess that ends the show. Oh no, here's some more kids. Y'all kids, let's see what we can do. Let's sing Yes, Jesus Loves Me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Y'all just jump in anytime. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. Y'all didn't jump in. Y'all didn't jump in. Well, sing a song, Christopher. You know a song? Sing a song for Uncle David.
Paula.
What?
Make some
That was
coffee.
a lovely song.
What you do?
John, sing a song for Dad.
Put about 2 or 3 spoons of coffee on top of the old grounds and run about 2 cups of water through them, okay?
Okay, that was lovely. Wait, Ain't Paula got to sing a song. Come on, Paula. When you least expected, you're elected, you're the star today.
Where's your coffee pot?
Oh, I don't know, over there somewhere.
Daddy.
I don't have a coffee pot.
Well, how do you make coffee in this
I just boil the water and pour it over the ground.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Coffee pot went berserk
What you
since
do?
we got the
Is
water.
that coffee in there, Paula?
Nuh-uh. That's just water.
Oh.
This is evidence that everybody knows that Paula can make coffee.
Sing, won't we, baby? He's singing for us, John. And we have here a baby. Is she sweet or what?
I cut shoot off my...
Now I see some green.
All right, it's on. Move, John. Move, John.
Make Chris.
Y'all got a sell beautiful little baby here. Yeah, it's a beautiful baby. Yeah. That's a beautiful little baby girl. Come around here and look at you off today. Oh, you want to be camera, okay? Okay. Well, I was singing You Can Dance, and we'll have a dancing team. Oh, Baba, baby, do the hanky-panky. Oh, Baba, baby, do the hanky-panky. Oh, my baby, do the hanky-panky. Oh, my baby, do the hanky-panky. Oh, my baby, oh, my baby. Boop, boop, boop. Wah-ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-boop, ba-ba, baby, do the hanky-panky. Oop, my baby. Move, John, do the hanky-panky. Turn around and show them your backside there, please. Oop, my baby, do the hanky-panky. Oop, my baby, do the hanky-panky. Oop, my baby, oh, the mama baby. Whoopie baby, do that hanky panky. Whoopie whoop, my baby, do that.
Aren't you sweet?
She likes doing hanky Tell Aunt Beth, say, I like doing the hanky panky with Monkey Day.
Yeah.
I like doing the hanky panky with Monkey Day, Mama. There she is. Look up there. Down there. What's the matter with you? What's with you? Oh, you want to tell what time it is? Okay, what time is it? Huh? What time is it? It's 25 minutes to 11. Okay. Who was that? Who was that? You know who that is? Huh? Who was that?
What's her name, Chris? Huh? What's her name?
Sissy. I mean, Sissy. She ain't even a girl. How you know she's a girl? She got long hair? She must be a girl then, huh? She wears a dress, huh? Yeah. She got long hair and wears a dress. She must be a girl, huh?